You're looking for a sewing machine that won't feel like a fancy gadget you'll never really use, but instead a workhorse you can rely on every day, that fits in your studio without taking over the whole room, and that actually justifies the price tag you're about to spend. That's the exact spot where most people pause. Do I need a computer-controlled machine, or will a basic mechanical do? Will this thing be a nightmare to set up, or will it just sit there and let me stitch? If you've been scrolling through endless specs and wondering if you'll end up with a machine that sounds impressive on paper but is a pain in practice, you're not alone. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Juki HZL F600 sits in the middle of that dilemma. It's marketed as a full-sized, computer-driven sewing and quilting machine, which already tells you it's aiming at the serious hobbyist or the small shop owner who needs more than just a straight stitch. The real question is whether those extra bells and whistles actually translate into smoother seams and less frustration for you, or whether they just add another layer of learning curve you'll never get past. First off, let's talk about the setup. When you pull the box out of the crate, the biggest thing you'll notice is the size. It's definitely a full-size machine, meaning the arm extends far enough to accommodate larger quilts or a piece of fabric the size of a sofa cushion. For anyone who's ever tried to stitch a 60-inch quilt on a compact portable, you'll understand why that extra reach matters. The machine's feet sit low enough that you can see the fabric clearly, and the table can be tilted to a comfortable angle. That little ergonomic tweak is something you only notice after you've spent a few hours sewing, but it saves a lot of neck strain when you're doing long projects. Now, the computer part. Juki's interface isn't a touchscreen that looks like a phone. It's a series of button presses and a small LCD that walks you through stitch selection. For a beginner, that can feel intimidating, but it's also a safety net once you get the hang of it. You can scroll through dozens of stitch patterns without having to manually adjust tension or stitch length each time. In practice, I've seen people who used to spend 10 minutes fiddling with a manual dial now finish that same adjustment in under a minute. That efficiency adds up, especially if you're making multiple garments or a series of quilt blocks. A practical strength that often gets lost in marketing talk is the automatic needle threader. If you've ever tried to thread a needle on a machine with a tiny eye, you know how much a simple misthread can ruin a whole session. The HZL F600's threader does exactly what it says: push a lever, and a small guide pulls the thread through the needle automatically. It's not a life-changing miracle, but it cuts down on that tiny irritation that builds up over time. Speed control is another area where the machine shows its worth. The motor can run at a fairly high RPM for quilting, but you can dial the speed down for delicate fabrics like silk or lace. I've heard from a few quilters who appreciate being able to set a consistent, slower pace when they're piecing intricate patterns, which reduces the risk of puckering. The fact that you can lock that speed in place means you won't have to constantly watch the foot pedal to keep it steady. On the flip side, the machine's larger footprint can be a drawback if you're living in a small apartment. It needs a dedicated table, and the weight means you can't just toss it into a closet and pull it out for occasional use. If you're the type who only sews once a month for a birthday gift, you might end up with a piece of equipment that occupies valuable floor space without being used enough to justify the cost. Speaking of cost, the HZL F600 sits in the mid to high range for home sewing machines. The rating on Amazon sits at 4.4 out of 5 stars from almost 300 reviewers, which suggests most owners are happy, but the price point still filters out casual users. If you're just starting out and only plan on making simple repairs or occasional DIY projects, a less expensive mechanical model may give you the same reliability without the extra expense of the computer interface. Who should buy this machine? If you're a seasoned sewist who already knows the basics and wants a machine that can keep up with diverse projects, garments, home decor, quilts, even small-scale production, the HZL F600 offers a blend of speed, stitch variety, and convenience that makes those tasks flow smoother. It's also a solid choice for anyone who's looking to step up from a basic mechanical and wants a machine that will grow with them as they experiment with new stitches, decorative patterns, or heavier fabrics like denim and canvas. Who should skip?